single hug over a dropped toy changes the morning and sets off a chain of events no billionaire ever expected. The morning sun streamed gently through the tall glass windows of the city cafe, casting soft golden light across the polished wooden tables. The cafe was lively, filled with the hum of quiet conversations, clinking coffee cups, and the occasional hiss of the espresso machine. In one corner, by a window overlooking the busy street, a little girl sat in a high chair, her small hands clutching a worn stuffed bunny. She was 5, with curly hair that bounced as she moved and wide, curious eyes that took in everything around her. Next to her sat her father, a man whose presence seemed to command the room without needing words. His sharp suit and quiet confidence marked him as someone important, though he preferred to remain unnoticed, blending into the calm of the morning despite his wealth and influence. He enjoyed these simple moments with his daughter. He liked taking her to ordinary places where she could be a normal child, where people would not fawn over him or treat him differently. This cafe was one of his favorites because it had a relaxed, welcoming atmosphere, and the staff always treated them like regular customers. Today, they had come for pancakes and warm chocolate milk, a treat the girl looked forward to all week. She had been chatting excitedly about her favorite toy, explaining to her father how she had arranged all the little figures in her backpack this morning before leaving the house. He listened quietly, nodding and smiling, though his mind occasionally flickered to the business calls and emails waiting for him later in the day. Still, for now, he pushed all that aside. This morning was about her. The little girl had been playing happily with her stuffed bunny, placing it on the table, hugging it, and sometimes pretending it was talking to her father. She would make small giggling noises, occasionally glancing at him to see if he was paying attention. Her father, sipping his coffee, watched her with a soft expression that few people ever saw. It was a mixture of pride, love, and gentle amusement. He enjoyed seeing her imagination at work, her little gestures and expressions that made her world so vivid and real. Outside, the city buzzed with activity, cars honking, pedestrians hurrying, but inside, it was a cocoon of calm. For him, these quiet mornings were rare treasures, moments where the weight of his responsibilities faded, replaced by the simple joy of watching his daughter grow. Suddenly, a small commotion broke the calm. The girl's stuffed bunny slipped from her hands and tumbled to the floor with a soft thud. Her eyes widened, and a small frown formed on her face. She reached out desperately, but the toy was just out of her grasp. Her lips quivered, and a tiny whimper escaped her throat. The cafe, with all its background noise, seemed to fade for a moment, as her distress became the center of his attention. He leaned forward slightly, ready to scoop up the toy himself, but he paused, watching. There was something about the way she looked so vulnerable and innocent that made him hesitate. He wanted to give her space to handle the moment, but he also felt a surge of protectiveness, a tug at his heart that told him he should intervene. Before he could move, a waitress approached. She was young, with a friendly smile that seemed to light up her entire face. Her apron was tied neatly around her waist, and she carried a small notepad in her hand. She had noticed the girl's distress immediately, having seen children like her countless times before, but there was something genuine in her concern. She bent down carefully, picking up the fallen toy with gentle hands, and held it out to the little girl. "Here you go," she said softly, kneeling to meet the girl's eye level. Then, without hesitation, she gave the child a warm hug, a small gesture of comfort that spoke volumes. The girl's face lit up instantly, her frown melting into a wide, relieved smile. She hugged the waitress back, giggling, feeling safe and cared for in that brief, unexpected moment of kindness. The billionaire father watched quietly, his coffee forgotten on the table. He had seen many people interact with children before, but this was different. This was natural warmth, unforced and genuine. There was no expectation, no desire for recognition. Just a simple act of kindness that had transformed his daughter's mood in an instant. He felt a strange mix of surprise and admiration. Who was this woman, and how could someone he had never met before make such a difference in such a short time? He realized he had been so focused on providing material comfort and protection that he had forgotten how much simple human connection mattered. This tiny moment, a hug over a fallen toy, had reminded him of something he hadn't thought about in years: the power of care. empathy, and attention. Around them, the cafe continued its usual rhythm. Other patrons glanced at the scene, some smiling at the obvious relief and joy on the little girl's face. The girl continued to hold her bunny tightly, glancing at her father to see if he was watching, then back at the waitress. He gave her a gentle nod before straightening up to take other orders. The father leaned back in his chair, a quiet smile on his face, feeling a sense of calm he hadn't experienced in a long time. He took a deep breath, savoring the simplicity of the moment. In the world he inhabited, full of boardrooms, negotiations, and constant scrutiny, such moments were rare. Here, in a small cafe with his daughter, life felt wonderfully ordinary, and yet extraordinary at the same time. The little girl, now content, resumed her play, arranging her toys and sharing stories with her father. She chattered about how her bunny had been rescued by the kind waitress, and her father laughed softly, listening intently. He asked gentle questions, encouraging her imagination, enjoying the innocence and creativity that filled the space between them. He realized that these were the moments that truly mattered, not the deals, the investments, or the fame, but the simple joy of seeing his daughter happy and secure. The waitress moved on to her next task, but the warmth lingered in the room. A quiet reminder of the impact one person could have with a small act of kindness. As they prepared to leave, the father paid the bill, nodding to the waitress with a quiet thank you. He didn't need to make a show of it. The gesture was enough. His daughter, holding her beloved bunny, skipped alongside him, her laughter light and carefree. The city outside continued its busy rhythm, but inside him, a sense of peace had settled. He had watched a small, seemingly insignificant event toy dropped. A hug given transform into a moment of connection, trust, and joy. And he knew that it was a memory he would carry with him, a reminder that sometimes the smallest gestures could leave the biggest impressions. The little girl's laughter filled the corner of the cafe as she clutched her rescued stuffed bunny, her curls bouncing with each excited movement. Her father, still seated and observing quietly, felt a warmth spread through his chest. He was not used to moments like this. It's moments where the world seemed to slow down, and all that mattered was the happiness of his child. The cafe, usually just background noise in his busy life, now felt alive in a different way. The scent of freshly baked pastries, the faint aroma of coffee, and the soft chatter of people seemed to blend into a comforting symphony that made him feel normal. For once he was not a billionaire, not a man whose decisions affected millions, not someone constantly in the spotlight. He was simply a father watching his daughter smile. The waitress, a young woman with a kind face and warm eyes, returned to her duties, but kept a discreet watch on the little girl. There was something captivating about how children responded to genuine care, and she had seen it countless times in her work, yet this little girl's joy felt particularly bright. She moved smoothly among the tables, taking orders, refilling cups, and chatting politely with customers, but her mind often drifted back to the scene at the corner table. There had been a moment of pure connection between her and the child, a silent understanding that kindness mattered more than anything else at that moment. She remembered the way the girl's small fingers had gripped her tightly, and how the little eyes had sparkled with relief. It was simple, but it felt meaningful. The father, observing quietly, began to notice small details about the waitress. He saw the gentle way she interacted with all the children in the cafe, not just his daughter, and how patiently she listened to their stories and responded with warmth. There was a natural grace in her movements, a kind of authenticity that was rare in the world he usually inhabited. People often approached him for favors, for introductions, or simply to bask in his attention. But here was someone entirely different, someone who acted from genuine compassion, not for gain or recognition. He found himself intrigued. He wanted to know more about her, about the person behind the friendly smile, the apron, and the efficient service. As he watched, the little girl continued to play with her toy, occasionally glancing up at the waitress as if to invite her into the game. The waitress, noticing these glances, smiled subtly, acknowledging the child without interrupting her play. The father noticed the ease and comfort in their interaction. It struck him how rare it was to witness something so natural. It made him reflect on his own life, on the many layers of protection and formality that surrounded him and his daughter. Outside of this cafe, the world was filled with expectations, with people trying to impress or manipulate, but here, in this small moment, everything was pure. Curiosity and admiration grew within him. He wondered about her life outside the cafe, her struggles, her dreams, her ambitions. The waitress moved between tables, refilling drinks and taking orders, and he watched the way she treated each customer with patience and respect, regardless of their demeanor. There was a quiet strength in her, a resilience that seemed unspoken, but evident in her actions. The father found himself thinking about how rare it was to encounter someone who carried kindness and humility with such natural ease. He felt drawn to her authenticity, to the sincerity that radiated without effort. Finally, after a moment of hesitation, he decided to speak to her. He waited until she had a brief pause in her work and then called her over. She approached with her usual polite smile, holding a notepad in one hand and a cup in the other. "Excuse me," he said softly, careful not to startle her. "Thank you for being so kind to my daughter. She really looked up to you for a moment." The waitress blinked, slightly surprised, but her smile widened. "Oh, it's nothing," she said humbly, shaking her head. "I just saw her toy fall, and I knew she'd be sad. I couldn't just ignore it." He nodded thoughtfully, studying her face, her expressions, the calm confidence in her posture. "It wasn't nothing," he said gently. "You made a big difference in her morning, and I'd like to know more about you if that's okay. About your life, your dreams, the things that matter to you." She paused, unsure if he was serious, but something in his tone suggested he genuinely wanted to listen. Slowly, she began to speak, sharing pieces of her story. She spoke of the long hours she worked at the cafe, her responsibilities at home, and the small moments that kept her going, a favorite book, a weekend walk, the laughter of a child she once comforted. As she spoke, the father listened intently, fascinated by the depth and sincerity in her words. He had lived a life of privilege and opportunity, yet her experiences, though more modest, carried a richness he found compelling. There was a certain resilience in her voice, determination that reminded him of the qualities he admired in people who succeeded not by luck, but by effort and heart. He asked gentle questions, careful not to pry too deeply, and she answered with honesty, surprised by how naturally the conversation flowed. His daughter, now content with her toys, occasionally chimed in with innocent observations or questions, and the waitress responded with the same warmth she had shown moments before. It was a delicate balance of attention, care, and conversation, and for the father, it felt like witnessing something rare and unfiltered human connection. He had spent so much of his life surrounded by people who were cautious, polite, or self-interested, yet here was someone completely genuine. She did not know him as a billionaire. She knew him simply as a father, sharing a morning with his child. And that made the connection all the more profound. Time seemed to stretch as they talked, the cafe around them fading into the background. He realized that these small interactions, these moments of authentic human connection, were the ones that truly mattered. The waitress, in her simple act of kindness, had created a memory for his daughter. But she had also created something deeper for him. Reminder that life was about people, about care, about the quiet gestures that leave lasting impressions. He thought about the contrast between his structured, high-stakes world and the uncomplicated beauty of this morning. The laughter of his daughter, the genuine smile of the waitress, the soft clatter of dishes, it all blended into a perfect moment of clarity and joy. As the conversation drew to a close, he thanked her again, his gratitude sincere. He could have offered a tip, a polite acknowledgement, but words alone could not express the depth of his appreciation. She smiled, shrugging slightly, insisting it was nothing, yet he could see she understood the impact she had made. His daughter hugged her once more before they prepared to leave. And in that hug, he saw not just his daughter's happiness, but a reflection of something deeper, the way small acts of care could bridge the gap between people from entirely different worlds. He watched them for a moment, taking in the scene before gathering his belongings. He realized that this morning, this simple outing, had become something extraordinary not because of the setting or the food, but because of the human connection that had unfolded naturally, without any expectation or planning. He walked toward the exit with his daughter skipping beside him, the waitress returning to her duties. But the warmth of the moment lingered, embedding itself in his memory. He felt a quiet sense of hope, a reminder that the world, despite its complexity and challenges, still held moments of genuine kindness. Moments that could touch hearts and leave lasting impressions as they stepped out into the bustling city street. He glanced back once at the cafe, at the waitress who had unwittingly become a part of this special morning. The memory of her smile, her warmth, and the simple hug she had given his daughter stayed with him. He felt a renewed sense of appreciation for the ordinary, for the small gestures that mattered more than grand gestures or wealth. And as he held his daughter's hand, watching her gaze curiously at the world around her, he realized that mornings like this, filled with genuine connection and shared joy, were the true treasures in life moments that could shape hearts and leave an imprint far beyond the fleeting minutes they lasted. The father stepped out of the cafe with his daughter skipping happily beside him, clutching her rescued stuffed bunny. The city streets were alive with movement cars honking, people chatting as they hurried along the sidewalks, and the occasional street musician filling the air with soft music. Yet, amid all the noise and bustle, his thoughts remained focused on the morning they had just shared inside the cafe. That small, seemingly ordinary moment, the waitress bending down to hug his daughter, was playing repeatedly in his mind. It wasn't just about the hug itself. It was about the way it had created a ripple of happiness, how it had transformed his daughter's morning, and how it had unexpectedly touched him as well. He watched his daughter laugh as she jumped over a small puddle leapt from an earlier rain. Her giggles were bright and carefree, and he felt a deep sense of satisfaction. These were the moments that made the pressures of his high-profile life feel distant. His business world was filled with strategy, competition, and constant decision-making. But here with his daughter, everything was simple and clear. He realized that happiness could be quiet, subtle, and profoundly moving all at once. Yet, while he appreciated this clarity, a small curiosity lingered. Who was that waitress? Really? How had someone he had just met left such an impression on both him and his daughter in mere minutes? The father thought about the waitress's actions carefully. She hadn't flinched, hadn't hesitated, and hadn't treated his daughter differently because of who he was. She had acted purely out of kindness, motivated by empathy rather than expectation. In a life where most people either sought something from him or were cautious around him, her authenticity felt almost rare. He wondered how her life had shaped such a genuine, caring personality. What did she experience that gave her this patience and warmth, qualities he admired but rarely encountered? He realized that while wealth could provide comfort, it could never buy the kind of authenticity and kindness he had just witnessed as he walked with his daughter. He noticed small details about people around them, but his mind often returned to the waitress. He thought about how children respond to kindness and how it could create trust and happiness instantly. His daughter had taken to her immediately, embracing her without fear, smiling and giggling freely. He remembered her words, her gentle tone, the way she had knelt to be at eye level with his daughter. The father felt a quiet admiration for her, a mix of gratitude and curiosity. He knew that moments like these were rare, even for him, and he didn't want to let it fade into the background. He wanted to understand, to connect, to know more about the person who had so naturally and effortlessly impacted their morning. The father considered how different their worlds were. He lived in a world of skyscrapers, boardrooms, and luxury, surrounded by people who often smiled for reasons other than sincerity. Yet here was someone from a completely different world, someone who worked in a cafe, who probably faced daily struggles unknown to him, who carried life's challenges quietly but with grace. And still, she radiated warmth and authenticity. He realized that there was a kind of richness in her life that didn't come from money or power, but from human connection, empathy, and resilience. This fascinated him, and he felt a growing desire to know her better. A few days later, unable to shake the memory of that morning, he returned to the cafe, this time with a deliberate purpose. He didn't want to intrude, nor did he want to create an awkward situation. but he felt it was important to acknowledge her impact. The cafe was busy again, and the familiar aroma of coffee and baked goods greeted him. He spotted her immediately, moving gracefully between tables, assisting customers with patience and efficiency. He watched her from a distance, observing the same gentle interactions he had noticed before. Children smiled at her, parents appreciated her kindness, and yet she remained humble, unaware of the impression she had left on him. When he finally approached her, he felt a nervous anticipation he hadn't expected. Despite his experience in high-stakes business negotiations, this interaction felt different. He wanted it to be genuine, not transactional. "Hello," he said softly, careful to sound casual. "I hope I'm not disturbing you. I just wanted to thank you again for the other day." She looked up, recognition flickering in her eyes, and gave him a polite smile. "Oh, it's fine," she replied modestly. "I was happy to help your daughter." There was a simplicity in her response that made him smile. She didn't need to elaborate. She hadn't acted for praise or recognition. Her humility only deepened his admiration. They began to talk, and this time the conversation lasted longer. He asked about her life, not in an intrusive way, but out of genuine interest. She hesitated at first, unsure how much to share with a man she barely knew, but she gradually opened up. She spoke about the long hours she worked to support herself, the dreams she had for her future, and the little joys that kept her motivated. A favorite hobby, a kind mentor, and small successes in her everyday life. Her words were simple, but they painted a vivid picture of resilience and determination. He listened, genuinely captivated, realizing that her life, though not filled with wealth or privilege, was rich in experiences, challenges, and human connection. He shared a little about himself too, but carefully, avoiding any mention of wealth or influence at first. He spoke about fatherhood, about the joy and responsibility of raising a child, and the importance of creating memories in ordinary settings. She listened attentively, occasionally smiling at his words, responding with thoughtful questions or observations. The father realized that the conversation was not about status or money. It was about understanding and human connection. He was struck by the natural flow between them, the ease of talking to someone who was honest, humble, and genuinely kind-hearted. His daughter, now seated at the corner table again with her toy, occasionally chimed in, asking innocent questions or offering her own small opinions. The waitress responded with patience, answering each question with warmth and care. The father watched this interaction and felt a deep sense of gratitude. Not only had the waitress made his daughter happy, but she had also created a sense of comfort, trust, and joy that lingered even as the conversation continued. He realized that kindness could have a profound ripple effect, touching multiple lives with a single action as the afternoon went on. He found himself reflecting on the lessons embedded in this simple encounter. In a life dominated by power, wealth, and public image, he had almost forgotten the importance of authenticity, of small acts of care that could leave lasting impressions. The waitress had reminded him, in a single moment, of what truly mattered: human connection, empathy, and the quiet power of compassion. He felt a subtle shift within himself, an appreciation for the ordinary, for moments that could not be bought, only experienced. Before leaving, he thanked her once again, not with a tip or gift, but with sincere words of gratitude. She smiled, modestly insisting that it was nothing, yet he could see that she understood the significance of the interaction. He noticed that even a small acknowledgement of her kindness mattered, reinforcing the idea that genuine gestures rarely go unnoticed. His daughter hugged the waitress one last time, and the father felt an unexpected warmth in his chest, a feeling of contentment, pride, and the quiet joy of witnessing authenticity in the world as they stepped back onto the busy street. He held his daughter's hand, observing her bright smile and the playful bounce in her step. He realized that mornings like these, filled with genuine interactions and simple kindness, were treasures far beyond material wealth. The city around them carried on with its rush and noise, but he felt a sense of calm and clarity. The memory of the waitress, her warmth, her kindness, the small but meaningful connection they had shared, remained vivid in his mind. It was a lesson in humanity, one that he knew would stay with him long after the moment had passed. In the following days, he found himself thinking about the waitress often, about the courage, patience, and kindness it took to live a life with dignity and warmth despite challenges. He reflected on the contrast between their worlds and how, despite the differences in wealth, opportunity, and lifestyle, shared human values could create bridges. The experience reminded him that connection, empathy, and genuine care were not determined by status, but by the choices people made in small moments every day. He resolved, quietly and without fanfare, to find ways to honor this connection. Not as a grand gesture, but as a way to nurture kindness and potential in someone who had already shown so much. The morning had begun with a simple accident: a toy dropped. Child momentarily upset, but it had evolved into a powerful reminder of the impact one person could have on another. The father felt grateful, reflective, and inspired, aware that this encounter had changed something within him, something subtle but significant. It had opened his eyes to the importance of noticing, appreciating, and valuing genuine kindness whenever it appeared. Days passed after that morning at the cafe, but the father couldn't stop thinking about the waitress. Her kindness had made a lasting impression on both him and his daughter. He replayed the moment in his mind countless times, the way she had knelt, held out the toy, and hugged his daughter with such warmth. He found himself wondering about her life, her dreams, and the challenges she faced each day. Despite all his wealth, influence, and power, he realized he had rarely met someone so genuine and unpretentious. There was something about her that went beyond appearances or social status. Her character shone naturally, and he wanted to honor that in a meaningful way. He thought carefully about how to approach her, without making it awkward or overwhelming. He wanted to offer help, not charity. He wanted her to feel respected, not patronized. For him, it was not about showing off his wealth or trying to impress her. It was about acknowledging her humanity and the impact she had made on his daughter. He understood that her life probably had its difficulties: long hours at work, financial struggles, maybe even sacrifices she had to make to pursue her dreams. He wanted to create an opportunity that could make a real difference, something that respected her independence while supporting her potential. After much thought, he returned to the cafe. This time, he brought a quieter confidence, a sense of purpose that made him feel more grounded. The cafe smelled of fresh bread and coffee as usual. The morning sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating the familiar scene. The waitress was already there, moving efficiently from table to table, offering cheerful smiles and attentive service. The father watched her from a distance for a moment, noticing the way she carried herself with patience, grace, and professionalism. Every gesture seemed effortless, yet he could sense the strength and determination beneath her calm exterior. When he approached her, he did so with a sense of respect and sincerity. "Hello," he said softly, careful to appear casual yet genuine. "I hope I'm not interrupting, but I wanted to speak with you about something important." She looked at him with mild surprise, her expression a mix of curiosity and caution. "Of course," she said, nodding. "What is it?" He paused briefly, then spoke carefully. "I want to offer you an opportunity, something that could change the course of your life. But I need you to understand that this comes from respect and admiration, not from a desire to control or impress you." The waitress blinked, her eyes widening slightly in disbelief. She had not expected this conversation. Many people had been polite or friendly in her life, but few had noticed her in a way that felt meaningful. She listened carefully as he explained that he had been moved not only by her kindness toward his daughter, but also by the strength and integrity he could sense in her. He told her that he wanted to help her pursue her goals, whether that meant education, career advancement, or a personal project she had always dreamed of completing. He emphasized that this was not a handout, it was a chance for her to use her talents and character to create a better future. She remained quiet for a moment, trying to process his words. The concept of such an offer felt surreal. She had spent years working tirelessly, often struggling to make ends meet. And here was someone offering her a genuine opportunity, without expectation or judgment. She wondered if it was real or if there was a hidden motive. Seeing the sincerity in his eyes, hearing the respect in his voice, she slowly began to understand that this was genuine. Her heart raced with a mix of excitement, gratitude, and disbelief. She could hardly imagine the possibilities this opportunity might bring. Yet a part of her also felt nervous about what it would entail. He reassured her gently, sensing her hesitation. "I know this might feel sudden, and I don't expect you to decide immediately. Take your time to think it over. I only ask that you consider it honestly, knowing that it comes from a place of respect for your character and potential." She nodded slowly, feeling a combination of relief and hope. She appreciated his thoughtfulness and the way he framed the offer. It was unlike anything she had encountered before, an opportunity given with trust, not expectation. Respect, not pressure. The conversation itself became a turning point, marking the start of something new in her life, something she had never imagined possible. Over the next few weeks, they met occasionally to discuss her goals and plans. He wanted to ensure that the path forward aligned with her aspirations and interests. He offered guidance and resources, introducing her to people and opportunities that could support her dreams. Yet he was careful never to overstep or take control. He encouraged her independence, believing that true success comes from her own decisions and efforts. During these meetings, he also observed the way she interacted with her daughter and with others around her, noticing again the natural warmth, empathy, and humility that had first drawn his attention. Through these interactions, a bond began to form, not one of dependence or obligation, but one of mutual respect and trust. The father saw her grow in confidence as she began to embrace the possibilities before her. He watched her develop plans, make decisions, and take steps toward a future she had once only dreamed about. At the same time, he reflected on the lessons he was learning from her example, the power of kindness, the impact of small gestures, and the importance of living with integrity and warmth. These were lessons that went beyond business or wealth. They were lessons about human connection and the essence of a meaningful life. Meanwhile, his daughter continued to thrive, building a small friendship with the waitress that was sweet and natural. She often looked forward to seeing her, sharing stories, and laughing at little jokes. The father noticed that his daughter seemed to feel more secure and confident. Inspired by the kindness and attentiveness the waitress showed, he realized that this small, seemingly ordinary connection had grown into something more significant, a web of trust, care, and inspiration that touched multiple lives. The bond between the three of them strengthened, each interaction reinforcing the values of empathy, respect, and support. The father also found himself reflecting on the broader meaning of the experience. Wealth, influence, and success could offer comfort and security, but they could not replace genuine human connection. The waitress had reminded him of the beauty of authenticity, of living with purpose and warmth, and of the impact small acts of kindness could have on others. Her life, though more modest in material terms, had a richness that he deeply admired, a richness built on resilience, empathy, and courage. He began to see that helping someone like her succeed was not just an act of generosity. It was an investment in the values he held most dear. As she began to embrace the opportunities offered, he watched her confidence grow. She pursued new goals, developed skills, and took steps that would have seemed impossible just weeks before. The father felt a quiet pride, not in himself, but in the way she navigated her life with courage and integrity. He realized that true impact comes from enabling others to shine on their own, not from controlling or dictating outcomes. Every small success she achieved became a testament to her character, her determination, and the ripple effect of a single, genuine act of kindness in the quiet moments of reflection. He thought about how this journey had started with something so simpler, toy dropped, a hug given. From that small ordinary act had grown a series of events that transformed lives. His daughter learned the value of kindness and empathy. The waitress discovered new possibilities and confidence. And he himself gained a deeper understanding of human connection, humility, and the beauty of genuine relationships. It was a reminder that even in a world dominated by wealth, status, and ambition, the smallest gestures could create the most meaningful change. Through this experience, the father became more attuned to the people around him. He noticed acts of kindness more readily, appreciated sincerity in interactions, and valued relationships that were authentic rather than transactional. He also continued to nurture his daughter's understanding of empathy, showing her how small actions like a hug or a kind word could shape lives in profound ways. The morning at the cafe had become a catalyst, sparking a journey of growth, connection, and understanding that went far beyond the simple walls of that small establishment. As weeks turned into months, the waitress's life began to change in tangible ways. Opportunities she had only dreamed of became real. She pursued education, built skills, and took steps toward independence and success, all while maintaining the warmth and humility that had first drawn the father's attention. The father watched these developments with quiet satisfaction, was grateful for the chance to support someone so deserving while also witnessing the ripple effects of kindness in his daughter's life. Their bond, built on respect, authenticity, and care, remained strong. A living example of the impact one small act of compassion could have. Months had passed since that morning at the cafe when the little girl had dropped her toy, and the waitress had given her a warm hug. The memory of that day remained vivid in the father's mind, not only because of the incident itself, but because of how it had set in motion a chain of events that had touched lives in unexpected ways. He watched his daughter playing in their home garden, the stuffed bunny still clutched in her hands, and felt a quiet sense of contentment. The small, simple moments, her laughter, her curiosity, her joy were the treasures he valued most, even more than the immense wealth he had accumulated over the years. But now, there was a new layer of fulfillment. He had witnessed the impact of kindness and connection, not just on his daughter, but on someone else's life too, and it filled him with a profound sense of satisfaction. The waitress's life had changed considerably. With the father's guidance and support, she had been able to pursue opportunities she had never imagined possible. She had enrolled in courses that aligned with her interests and started developing skills that could help her advance professionally. What amazed the father most was how she maintained her humility and warmth despite the sudden shift in her circumstances. She did not let opportunity change her character. If anything, it had strengthened her resolve to help others and to live with integrity. Her natural empathy, which had first caught his attention, now extended into every aspect of her life, influencing her work, her interactions, and even the small gestures she offered to those around her. The little girl, now more familiar with the waitress, would occasionally spend time with her outside the cafe, sharing stories, playing games, or simply enjoying each other's company. Their bond had grown naturally, free of any pressure or expectation. The father watched these moments quietly, noting how his daughter's sense of security and happiness seemed to expand in the presence of someone so genuine. He realized that kindness was contagious. The waitress's warmth had shaped his daughter's understanding of empathy, trust, and human connection. Observing their interactions, he felt an overwhelming sense of pride, not the pride of wealth or achievement, but the pride of seeing goodness ripple through lives because of one simple, heartfelt gesture. The father himself had changed as well. The cafe encounter had reminded him that despite the constant pressures of wealth and influence, life's most meaningful moments came from connection, authenticity, and simple human kindness. In his world, people often smiled for reasons of gain or recognition. But here was someone whose actions were pure and unpretentious. He reflected on how this had opened his eyes to the importance of noticing, appreciating, and encouraging genuine character wherever he encountered it. Every time he saw the waitress succeed, or watched his daughter interact with her, he felt reassured that investing in people's potential could be far more rewarding than any business deal or acquisition. Over time, the father and the waitress developed a bond built on mutual respect and understanding. She never sought favors or handouts, but she accepted the opportunities presented to her with gratitude and determination. The father admired her ability to balance humility with ambition, and he found himself learning from her as much as she had learned from him. Their conversations often revolved around dreams, ethics, and the challenges of everyday life, creating a dynamic that was rare and meaningful. For him, it was a lesson in the power of patience, authenticity, and the ripple effect of small acts of care. He began to apply these lessons in other areas of his life, noticing that fostering kindness and genuine connection often led to outcomes far more fulfilling than he could have imagined. His daughter's perspective of the world also began to shift in subtle but significant ways. Having witnessed the waitress's natural warmth and integrity, she learned to value kindness over status, compassion over material wealth, and empathy over self-interest. Simple interactions like sharing a toy or giving a hug took on new meaning. She began to understand that small gestures could have a profound impact on others, shaping their emotions and experiences. The father was amazed at how naturally she absorbed these lessons, demonstrating that even young minds are capable of understanding and embracing values of empathy and generosity. When guided by example, as the waitress pursued her goals, she often encountered challenges, long hours, new responsibilities, and moments of self-doubt. Each time, she reflected on the father's guidance and support, as well as the initial kindness she had shown to his daughter. These reflections gave her strength, reminding her that she had been trusted, respected, and valued for who she was, not what she could offer. This trust became a source of motivation, helping her navigate difficulties with resilience and determination. It also reinforced her desire to remain grounded, to continue acting with integrity and warmth, and to ensure that her own success was accompanied by the same kindness she had always shown others. The father also began to notice subtle changes in himself. He became more attentive to the people around him, appreciating authenticity in ways he had often overlooked. He started to prioritize moments of genuine human connection over transactions or appearances, understanding that these moments could have lasting effects. His daughter's happiness, nurtured by both his attention and the waitress's influence, became a reminder that life's most meaningful achievements are often invisible to the public, but invaluable in shaping hearts and minds. He realized that wealth and influence could provide resources, but they could not replace the emotional richness of empathy, trust, and care. One afternoon, the father visited the cafe again, not for business or observation, but simply to see the progress of the waitress. She greeted him warmly, her smile as genuine as it had been months earlier. They spoke about her recent achievements, the new skills she was developing, and her goals for the future. The father listened intently, feeling proud of the growth she had shown. Her success was not just about opportunity. It was about her courage, integrity, and dedication. He realized that his role had been that of a facilitator, a supporter, rather than a director, allowing her natural talents and character to shine. Meanwhile, the little girl played nearby, occasionally running over to share a story or a joke, her laughter blending with the soft music and the aroma of coffee in the cafe. The father watched the scene unfold, recognizing the quiet beauty of ordinary life. The waitress's guidance, kindness, and example had extended beyond a single moment. They had become part of the child's understanding of the world. The father felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that the choices he had made, guided by empathy and respect, had created a positive ripple effect for both his daughter and the waitress. The months continued to pass, and the waitress's life transformed in meaningful ways. She gained confidence, achieved milestones she had once only dreamed of, and continued to maintain the humility and warmth that had initially impressed the father. Her story became a testament to the impact of kindness and opportunity, proving that even small gestures could ignite profound change. The father, observing this transformation, felt gratitude for the morning, that it started at all the morning when a dropped toy and a simple hug had created a connection that extended far beyond the walls of a cafe. The father also reflected on the broader lesson of the experience. In a world often dominated by wealth, power, and public image, the true measure of value lay in human connection, integrity, and empathy. He realized that while his resources could provide comfort, education, and opportunities, it was the authenticity and kindness of people like the waitress that shaped meaningful lives. He began to see that success was not merely measured in material terms, but in the positive impact one could have on the world around them. One evening, the father sat with his daughter, sharing stories of the day, and she spoke fondly of her time with the waitress. Her eyes sparkled as she recounted moments of laughter, shared secrets, and small games they had played. The father smiled quietly, realizing that these memories would shape her values and understanding of the world for years to come. He knew that she was learning the importance of compassion, empathy, and recognizing the goodness in others. These lessons, seeded through a simple act of kindness, were far more powerful than any material gift he could provide. As the story came full circle, the father felt a sense of peace and fulfillment he had rarely experienced. The cafe incident, initially a small and ordinary moment, had evolved into a life-changing series of events. The waitress had grown. His daughter had learned valuable lessons about empathy, and he himself had gained a deeper understanding of what truly mattered in life. It was a quiet triumph of human connection, authenticity, and kindness, a reminder that even in the midst of wealth and complexity, the simplest gestures can leave the deepest marks. In the end, the father realized that life's greatest rewards were not measured by money or fame, but by the impact one could have on the hearts and minds of others. The morning when a toy was dropped, a hug was given, and a connection was formed had blossomed into something extraordinary. It had created ripples that touched multiple lives, teaching lessons of generosity, empathy, and respect. The father, the waitress, and his daughter had all been changed by this experience, each in their own way, bound together by a simple, profound moment of human kindness. And as he watched his daughter laugh, her stuffed bunny clutched tightly in her arms, he knew that the story was not about wealth or status, but about love, compassion, and the lasting power of small, genuine gestures that could shape lives forever.